It began like any other workday at the parliament, but by nightfall, it became a story impossible to forget, a story that will never be forgotten. The soldiers arrived just after dawn, 10 in total. Their faces were gaunt, hardened by years of battle. They wore mismatched uniforms, some torn, others ill-fitting. These were men abandoned at the front lines, betrayed by the very country they had sworn to protect. They locked the main gates and moved silently through the halls. The security spotted them from the security room, where he was logged in for the day. The guards didn't even try to stop them. One glance at their weapons, and the guards simply raised their hands and stepped aside. Inside, the soldiers didn't waste time. They walked straight to the main chamber where the lawmakers were preparing for a session and said, "Nobody leaves," their leader said, his voice calm but filled with menace. He pointed his rifle at the Speaker of the House. "Call the government. Tell them we're not leaving until we get answers." The Speaker tried to reason with them. "We can discuss this," he said. "We can arrange a hearing." But the soldiers weren't interested in promises. "Enough talking," one of them barked. "We've lost brothers because of your lies. Today, you listen." The tension in the room was unbearable. The leader, a tall man with a scar running down his cheek, scanned the room. "Where is the Minister of Defense?" he asked. Word spread quickly outside. By mid-morning, the government sent the Minister of Defense to negotiate. When he walked in, he looked confident, even smug, as if this were just another meeting. But his confidence faded fast. The soldiers didn't give him a chance to explain himself. "You left us to die," the leader said. "Where were you when we called for reinforcements? Where were you when we ran out of bullets?" The minister stammered, trying to respond, but they weren't listening. The leader gave a signal, and the soldier raised his gun. The sound of the gunshot echoed through the chamber. Panic broke out. Lawmakers and staff tried to flee, but the soldiers had already locked the doors. "Nobody moves," the leader said again. "This is only the beginning." For the next 2 days, the parliament remained in lockdown. The soldiers patrolled the halls, their boots echoing on the marble floors. Outside, the government scrambled. They sent the chief of the armed forces next, hoping his military rank would earn him respect. But the soldiers saw him as part of the same system that betrayed them. He lasted just an hour before they executed him. Each day, a new official was sent. Each day, one lawmaker tried to climb out of a window, only to be caught and dragged back inside. The soldiers didn't hurt him, but their warning was clear: no one escapes. By the 4th day, the streets outside were filled with protesters. Some supported the soldiers, chanting for justice. Others demanded the government take action to free the hostages. Inside, the tension grew unbearable. The 5th official sent was the Minister of Justice. He tried to appeal to the soldiers' sense of duty. "You swore an oath to this country," he said. "Don't let anger consume you." But the soldiers only laughed. "What oath?" one of them sneered. "The one you broke when you left us to die." By the 6th day, the soldiers had grown restless. They began sharing stories of the war front, of hunger, of comrades dying from wounds that could have been treated if only help had come. One of them, a younger soldier with a bandaged arm, broke down in tears. "We are not animals," he said. "But they treated us like we were." The government sent the chief of staff next. Then the special advisor to the president. Each time, the result was the same: negotiation failed, and the soldiers made their anger known in blood. The 7th official, the Minister of Interior, tried a different approach. He offered money, compensation for their suffering. But the leader laughed. "Do you think we're here for bribes?" he asked. "This is not about money. It's about dignity." By the 8th day, the government was running out of ideas and people to send. The 9th and 10th officials had been executed within hours, their bodies left at the gates as a grim warning. The 11th official sent was the Minister of Foreign Affairs. He had been brought into Project Com, wearing an attire that shimmered with power and authority. He spoke about international consequences, warning the soldiers that their actions could isolate on the global stage. But the soldiers only laughed. "We've already been abandoned," one of them said. "What difference does it make if the world abandons us too?" He was held hostage for hours before the soldiers ended his life. Soldiers were growing more unpredictable, their patience fraying like a rope stretched too thin. The 11th official, the director of civil service, arrived looking terrified. He tried to reason with the soldiers, offering to personally ensure that their demands were met. He promised. But the soldiers had heard too many empty promises. They let him speak for less than 20 minutes before silencing him forever. By the time the 12th official arrived, even the public outside had begun to turn against the government. Protesters gathered in the streets, chanting for accountability and justice. Some called the soldiers heroes, others called them criminals. The 13th official, the Minister of Labor, tried to appeal to the soldiers' sense of justice. "What you're doing won't fix anything," he said. "It'll only create more chaos." But chaos was already here. He didn't make it through the night. The 14th official was the chief whip of the Senate. He arrived surrounded by security personnel, wearing a stern expression that barely hid his fear. He demanded the soldiers surrender immediately, threatening them with charges of treason. But threats only fueled their anger. "Treason," the leader shouted. "Is it treason to demand the lives of our brothers be valued?" The chief whip didn't leave the building alive. The 4th official, the Minister of Finance, came with promises of financial compensation. "We can pay you for your losses," he said. But the soldiers laughed bitterly. "You think money can bring back the dead?" one of them asked. He didn't leave the chamber alive. By the time the 5th official arrived, the Minister of Information, the tension in the room was suffocating. The minister tried to reason with them, saying their actions would only harm their cause. "You're losing public support," he said. But the soldiers weren't interested in public opinion. Another gunshot echoed through the halls. Finally, General Musa arrived. He was an older officer, retired but respected, General Musa. He had once been a mentor to many of the soldiers in that unit. When he walked in, there was a moment of silence. General Musa didn't try to make excuses. He sat down in the middle of the chamber and listened. The soldiers poured out their anger, their grief, their betrayal. For hours, he said nothing, just nodded. Then he spoke. "I failed you," he said simply. "And I won't ask for your forgiveness. But if you kill me, nothing will change. Let me help you find justice the right way." It was the first time I saw the soldiers hesitate. They argued among themselves, their voices growing louder. Eventually, the leader agreed. They handed over their weapons and surrendered. The soldiers were arrested, but their actions shook the entire nation. The government launched an inquiry, promising reforms in the military. But the damage was done. Those of us in the parliament will never forget those 10 days of terror. Dear viewer, if you enjoyed the story, give us a thumbs up, share it with friends, and hit that subscribe button. Don't forget to turn notifications button so you never miss out on our latest updates. Thanks for watching and stay blessed.